All right, we're back with Sean Carter. It's August 30th, 2017, and we're talking to Sean Carter, lawyer, Harvard Law School. Joined the church as a black man with his wife and several children in Mesa, Arizona in 2011 after listening to Mormon Stories, Mormon Expression, and all the podcasts and learning all the crazy stuff about Mormonism. And if you joined us in part one, you will have heard that we talked about his upbringing in Los Angeles, born in Compton, raised in LA, and eventually in the suburbs, had a great education, went to Brown, went to Harvard. And because he was trying to bring Jesus into his life as an adult, as he said, as a grown-ass man, he was trying to bring Jesus into his life. He convinced his wife to investigate the Mormon Church, and they joined in 2011 in Mesa, Arizona, and for several years attended regularly as non-literal participants, non-literally believing participants, unorthodox and unorthodox. And now what we're going to talk about is how Sean's shelf started to crack. So Sean, let's talk about how your shelf started to crack. What happened?
You know, there were always these, underlying problems. Like you said, you put it on the shelf. So, the Book of Mormon inaccuracies. And what bothered me most about the Book of Mormon was not that I thought that Joseph might have taken some liberties with the truth or just made it up. Like I said, I do that all the time. I can live with that. But that, the presumption of whiteness, not just the using whiteness and the delightsomeness, but I remember one time having this conversation with a, 40 generation, Mormon, and we were talking about this, and I said, "Look, is there the presumption that when I get to heaven, I will, get an upgrade to whiteness, that I'll get to be white in heaven? Because I really don't really want to be, because it'd been easy to be one of the few blacks in Mormon heaven because I could find my wife easier, right? And have you seen the other black woman? No, she's not Gladys. It's that one, right? It's easier to find her. It took me a long time to really get used to black. I'm getting good at it now. And I don't want to give that up. And he was like, well, you don't have to give that up, right? We'll all be the real good color. And then, I made the mistake of spending some time, not just in Mormon, podcast land, but some of the Mormon blogs and the online communities. One I think you're familiar with, John, Mormon Dialogue.
Yeah. It's a forum where both apologists and critical skeptics try to have conversations about Mormon topics, right?
Absolutely. And so we'd have conversations about things like that, about the priesthood ban. And then, of course, the church comes out. What year was that when it came out the apology? Well, not the apology.
With the essays. Let's just say 4 or 5 years ago.
Exactly. 4 or 5 years ago, they come out with the essays. And I'm amazed by it because there is, which of course, as we've learned from Elder, whatever the guy who used to be the judge, Elder
Oaks.
We learned Oaks. There we go. Elder Oaks said that the Lord doesn't like apologies, and so there's no apology. There's no because even there's a couple of interpretations of how what the essay says, but at the end the essay basically says this. There was this myth that about blacks being not valiant or being cursed, and we just want to simply say that isn't true, which is fine. But if you've told a lie about us for 100 years, you owe an apology. If I told everyone on my street that my, Asian neighbors, all right, ate babies for 100 years, and then I said to one day, you know what, I'm sorry. I didn't just say I'm sorry. I went to them and I said, you know what, good news. I'm not going to tell people you eat babies anymore. Are we good? No, we're not good, right? I owe them an apology. I need to make amends somehow. And the church is really kind of like, hey, we're all good now. Yeah, I know we were raised for 100 years. We said horrible things about you. But by the way, most of our people still believe to some degree. But you know what? We're not giving you anything but 4 BYU football scholarships. Now, none of those kids are going to graduate, but we'll give you those scholarships. But that is it. We're not doing, scholarships in the inner city. We're not doing anything to make amends for this. You just need to be okay with the fact that, we might have lied on you for 100 years. And I was like, not okay with that. And then I would go to Mormon Dialogue, and and of course you have the apologists, saying, well, of course the church couldn't be wrong, so you black people need to suck it up.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so eventually,
You were being white-splained.
There we go. Right. And kind of, and so I'm having that problem. I had then, a big problem with the 100th white apostle. I looked it up. I guess in October 2015, we got 3 new apostles.
Right.
And lo and behold, the 98th, 99th, and 100th apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints were white. I couldn't believe the think about the odds of that. What are the odds of that? And here's what offended me about it. Remember, at the same time, the church brought out the Meet the Mormons, or as I call it, Meet the Mormons that you'll never actually meet. Right? but think about it. They would not think about, for mass consumption, bringing out 6 white families and saying, hey, meet the Mormons. They understand that looks bad for the outside world. But they had no problem with saying, hey, meet the 100th guy in a row that the Lord thinks is valuable. And this is what bothered me about it. I knew their audiences. They played to their audiences. They know that the rest of society wouldn't stand for this. But they knew their members would be perfectly happy with 100 white guys in a row. You could sell 100 white guys in a row to their members, not a problem at all. You realize that you can't sell 9 white guys to anybody else in America. So I looked it up at the time. If you look at any of the large ski companies, the companies that are public, K2 or whatever, people who make K2, they don't have all white board members. They have a black board member for a ski company. Now, I don't know if you know this, but brothers don't have a big part of the ski market, all right? But they know, even for their all-white customers, that they could not have an all-white board and get away with it. That someone would be like, oh, no, I'm going to buy my skiing equipment elsewhere, right? But somehow within the church, they knew that 100 white guys in a row would be perfectly acceptable. And the members would go, yeah, that sounds about right. And that sort of bothered me because, like I say, I don't get mad, by the way, at the 15 old guys. You'll find it hard to believe, but growing up as a kid, my parents never once taught me, Sean, if you have a problem in life and you need some help, you need to find 15 old white guys. That's going to be your best bet. They will have your best interest at heart. 15 old white guys is really the key for you always. Right? So I never had this belief that the prophets had all the answers, etc. I'm not a literal believer like that. But I do know that the prophets know the membership. And what they knew is they could sell 100 white guys. By the way, they didn't even put a disclaimer out. They didn't even ever address the issue and say, hey, by the way, have you noticed that everybody has been white for the last 100 times? They knew that you guys, that the membership would accept it like it was nothing. Like, of course, how else would the Lord choose? This isn't, ward basketball. This is the prophet. This is important. We need white guys in there. We can't even have white women in there. We need white guys. We need to get this right. This is the Lord's instruction. You got and that, by the way, is what I mean by white supremacy. It's not a hatred. It's simply an underlying thought that if you need something done right, that there is a better, that the best group of people to do any particular important thing are white men. And, and like I said, I was a little disappointed in the membership. No one, for instance, in my ward, by the way, said that they had problems with it. Everyone got up and they gave their obligatory, we support and sustain the new apostles, and nobody had a problem with it. So then I started noticing things with my son Brendan. He's now 13, but he's the kid who's growing up in Mormonism. So I remember one night before bed, I'm talking to him, and I'm not reading him a story, but we're probably sitting on respective beds playing with an iPhone or something. But he says to me, Daddy, when do I get to be white? And maybe he's like 8 years old at the time. I'm like, what do you mean when you get to be white? He's like, well, I'm light brown now. He doesn't really understand race. Right? Well, I'm light brown now. When do I get to be white? And I was like, oh, I don't know how to break this to you, son. You're never going to get to be white. And he was a little bummed out.
Oh, man. What was that like for you?
It was weird to me because I knew that his primary teacher never said to him, now, Brendan, if you work hard, you get to be white one day. All right. But somehow he had figured out, because more is caught than taught, that there is a value in whiteness. And if I can achieve this whiteness, right, then I can really, really be somebody. One day I'm trying to get him up for church. And remember, he's smart. He doesn't want to go. And for some reason, I can't convince him that church is not like an airplane. I think in his mind at the time, he thought if we just miss church, if we're late to church, church will just take off and we'll miss it, right? We can go back home. So he's fooling around, goofing off, trying to make us late. And I have to get my daddy voice out. I'm like, boy, go get your clothes on. And he looks at me and he was like, want a new daddy. I can respect that. I respect that. And then he says to me, the most amazing thing, he says, I want mommy to get a divorce and I want her to marry a new man. And this time I want a white daddy.
Whoa.
And I'm like, whoa. Now, on one hand, you have to understand I'm hurt, but on the other hand, I'm kind of proud. As a father, my job is for him to hate my guts about half the time. That's a good father. And I'm like, you think I'm being facetious. My dad, for instance, is a wonderful dad. If you listen to Hi Dad, love my dad to death. I hated my dad a lot growing up, all right, because he was doing his job. All right, and his job sometimes was to instill fear or respect in me, to not, sometimes for me not to want him to get home, early from work, right? As I knew that I had, a talking coming to me or worse, and that's his job. And so I'm kind of proud that my son, doesn't like me that much. But I'm like, but I figured out why he wanted a white daddy, because in the environment he was growing up in, the best men he knew were white men who were kind to him and generous to him, because, by the way, that's the job of the young adults leader, is not to, not to give him punishments or restrictions or take away his iPhone, but to be kind to him. And so he's starting to get these ideas in his mind. By the way, also, I got him back, by the way, just as a side note. Oh. Later that night, he texts me from his room, because why would he walk 25 feet down the hall? So he texts me and, some entitled thing like, go get, can you give me some apple juice? And I write back, get your own damn juice. And I signed it, Black Daddy. Because Black Daddy don't play that. But I'm starting to see these things that come in where they're not things that anyone has ever sat down and taught him. But he's starting to, to get them in his mind, this idea that whiteness is really what he's trying to aspire to.
Do you associate that with the church mostly, or Mesa, Arizona, or America, or popular culture? Is there, and I'm hearing it implied that some of that is coming from the Mormon Church, in your view. Is that what you're saying?
Well, here's what we could definitely say that would be the case in most areas where you're the only black family, and we're not the only black family in this area, but we're pretty close. I'll give you an example. When I show up at the dry cleaners, I never have to tell them my name. All right. As soon as I show up in the door, they're like, "Here's your stuff. Get out of here before the other white customers see you." And they know me. When my wife pulls in to CVS to get the prescriptions, they just throw the bag out the window. They know who we are, even outside of the church, right? Just in general area, because it's not that many African American families in our community, so they would have that experience anywhere where you would get the idea that whiteness was most people were white, and so that's something to aspire to. But what's different in Mormonism, like I said, is that there is no compunction about that. Most churches would try to create an impression. So, for instance, if you go to most white churches around here, they'll have someone of color somewhere in the leadership on purpose, because they just understand it doesn't look right. Right. To have all white guys everywhere, and I think in the LDS community, there isn't that sense of of cultural literacy, of understanding that I don't think that 100 white Mormons gather somewhere and think, wow, it's mighty white in here. It's like, no, this is how things are in life. And I think other people would be like, oh, this doesn't look right at all. We need to figure this out. Yeah. And so I think it's more concentrated in Mormonism, but certainly not unique, right? Right. So you have some of that everywhere. And as he starts to get older, we have to try to explain to him what it's like to be black. I remember literally sitting down and talking to him once, and like, look, he was telling me how he was doing a project in school about Dr. King. And he says to me, Dr. King was a great man. He really helped blacks get, equality. And the way he said it was kind of third person-ish. So I was like, son, you do realize you're black too. And he's like, no, Daddy, I'm not black. I'm light brown. And because he's thinking about race literally from the kind of stance of color. So there are Latino kids that are darker than him. And maybe even, if you're Asian or Filipino, he's kind of a lighter black. And so I'm trying to explain to him this concept of blackness. And I said, your grandmother is black. Now, remember, I told you both my parents are black, but my mother is like Steph Curry black. All right, so she, you might not be able to tell, but I got black daughter. I know, and I said, Grandma's black, and he's like, no, Grandma's not black. I'm like, yes, Grandma's black too. And I'm trying to explain to him this concept of race, which is hard because they was we told it's a made up construct, so it's hard to explain. But I've got to explain to him as he gets older how important this is. So my wife calls me one day, panicked from the road. She says, I took Brendan to a friend's house, and when I got there, they were playing with airsoft guns in the in the street, and I was freaked out. I said, fortunately, Brendan wasn't playing. He was upstairs with with a friend playing, but the other kids were out there playing with the airsoft guns, and we got to have a talk with them. And so I remember being back on a flight. I remember writing this down on Facebook too, because I'm on a flight from Philadelphia, so I got 5 hours to try to explain to my son, we've been kind of lying to you up until this point. We've been telling you that, you're as good as anybody else and that you have every right to expect the best from life as anybody else. But I've got to explain to you that, there's certain things you can't do. And now that you're 13 years old, you're going to have to realize that at all times, the most important thing you have to do is to make sure that you never make a white person afraid. You can't hold a toy gun because someone will be afraid. They will assume it's a real gun, and and it will get really bad. You have to understand all the time you have to understand that you cannot make white people afraid. You got into a point where you're not cute. You're not as cute as you used to be, and I've got to have this talk with them. And it is hard to even fathom how I'm going to say this to them, right? And I remember sitting down before the talk, and kids are always much better.
And of course, you're thinking about the murders of young black men all across America.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Are there specific ones that inspired you or that moved you?
So, for instance, the one that inspired me there is, the story of Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old black kid in Cleveland. He's in a park, by the way, playing with an airsoft gun, and the police come, and in less than 2 seconds, he is dead. From the time they get out, they arrive on the scene, the car didn't stop to a roll. Pop jumps out and shoots him right in the chest. The gun, by the way, is in his waistband. All right. And remember, this is a toy gun in a park for a child, in a state, by the way, where it's legal to carry a gun. But not if you are an African American, and certainly not if some of you know about the story of John Crawford. I think another Cleveland story of a father who's buying his son a BB gun in Walmart. The police come, they see him holding this BB gun in Walmart, and they shoot him dead, no questions asked, etc. And so I've got to get him to understand that he always has to be very conscious of what he looks like to other people.
Are there other stories you want to tell? Because I don't think we could get enough of these for those of us who aren't as connected. So, because I don't think those of us who are white have any understanding of what it's like to live in fear.
Yeah,
of making someone afraid, right?
Exactly.
We probably don't even believe that there's a thing like driving while black, that even exists, right? Let alone being shot dead for carrying a toy gun. But it's happening.
Absolutely. It's happening all the time, right? And, the stories they hurt me to talk about, but I've got to give you the last one I'll tell you about is, and one I think that maybe most of the listeners have heard about, Falando Castile. This is a black man who's driving with his family, girlfriend and daughter in the car, and he gets pulled over by the police. It's a normal traffic stop, broken taillight. He explains to the officer that he is a licensed gun holder. He has a gun in the car, and the officer says, give me your license registration. He goes to reach for that. The officer shoots him dead. The thing that was most upsetting about that is that it was an amazing display of something I call, not playfully, negrophobia, which is this fear that every black man is just 1 second away from an apocalypse. He's just 1 second away from losing his mind and killing a white person, because you realize this officer shows up, sees a man with his wife and child, and thinks he's going to start a shootout with me, with his child in the back seat, with his wife in the crossfire, because this is the kind of crazy, deranged person he is that he is going to, by the way, before he does so, though, he's going to tell me he has a gun. Because that is what a rational person would do, is that they would tell me they have a gun and then shoot me. And the thought is that that officer was absolutely convinced that this black man he had come across was completely irrational and out of his mind. that no. By the way, and that's what rational people, I think that's what cop killers do, is they take their family out for a Saturday night drive and look to get into a gunfight with the cops. I mean, it's a bizarre concept. And what bothered me was the officer was acquitted. The legal standard is an officer can use lethal force if they have a reasonable belief that their life is in danger. And so a jury, by the way, 2 African Americans and 10 white people looked at it and said, yes, if you come across a black man and he's with his family on a Saturday, it's a reasonable supposition that he is going to tell you he has a gun and draw down on you. And that is just the general societal, milieu. There was a video I posted the other day on Facebook, just 2 days ago. We can't hear the sound, but a man is in what looks like a Subway shop. There's a white man and his wife and child, and a black man behind them in line. There's a conversation. We can't hear what's going on in the conversation. It doesn't look heated. And all of a sudden, the white man pulls out his gun and points at the black guy. He frisks him, makes sure the guy didn't have any weapons. The guy doesn't have any weapons. And then he motions for the guy to go and order his sandwich. And the thing that was bizarre to me about that was that, one, he thought, hey, this guy in a Subway is dangerous to me. I need to, find out. And that the black guy went and ordered his sandwich. He still had an appetite. It did not shock him and offend him and make him so resentful that he could not eat. I couldn't imagine that. And I thought, this is a young black man. I thought, how many times must he have a gun pointed at him before you still keep your appetite? How often must that happen before you still can go, I like to have the turkey. Make sure you give me extra provolone. Like, think about it, right? He ordered a sandwich like it was nothing wrong. And that young man has been taught that, yes, every white man will be suspicious of you, or every white person, and that, by the way, law enforcement or not, you must give the same deference to every white person. You must follow their commands and do exactly what they say, because that is how you stay alive in America, is by making sure the white people understand, that you're not, you pose them no harm.
Yeah, I mean, you're an incredibly funny guy, and I've laughed more in this episode than I've laughed in most of my episodes, but I'm feeling really sad right now because that's awful. It's truly horrendous.
It is horrendous, but here's the thing about it is it's subtle. Until a few years ago, I wouldn't have noticed it. And give you an example, one of the things that you learn early as an African American is that you certainly don't want to make any white people fearful, but you certainly can never, ever, ever make a white woman afraid. All right. And by the way, all minorities know that. I call it the golden brown rule, which is simply that you do not piss off white women. And so I'll give you an example of how this is caught and not taught. My family, I took my 23-year-old son and my 13-year-old son to see professional wrestling because we're a classy black family like that. By the way, 3rd generation WWE fans too. Really, I'm sorry, Dad, I had to tell. So we go to the wrestling, and we're there, and a young white woman walks up to the ring, and she wants to take pictures or whatever, and she's blocking the view of people in my aisle. This is a wrestling event. Did I mention that? This is not the classiest people. And by the way, they serve alcohol at this wrestling event. So the comments that are coming to her are not necessarily polite. And people are, yelling for her to move. And she's a young white woman. She's not. And so she takes her time, does whatever she wants to do, and then she leaves. I said, okay, fine. A few minutes later, she comes back. She gets back in the ring. I guess she didn't get all the footage she wanted. And people are really yelling things to her now that are not just politically incorrect, they're even anatomically incorrect. Right? People are just yelling the craziest stuff to this woman. And my 23-year-old son kind of, nudges me and is like, Dad, do you see what she's doing? This is horrible. After the wrestling, he's still upset about it. And we're in the car on the way home. And he's like, I cannot believe that woman stood in front of us. I can't believe, she did that. And so I've got to try to explain to my son that, yes, you're going to come across in life a lot of entitled white women, i.e. all of them. And you have to get it through your mind right now that you're not going to let that bother you, because you won't live to be 30 if you get high blood pressure every time, you run across some entitled white woman. And I know, not all, hashtag not all of you, hashtag but most of you. I get it. But, and he says to me, he says, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can let these people, just get away with this. And I said, son, you already did it tonight. He said, what do you mean? I said, when those guys were all yelling that stuff at the woman, did you yell anything at her? and I don't mean you didn't have to say anything rude or, you know, you call her names, but did you say, ma'am, could you please sit down? I'm like, he's like, no, you didn't say anything. Let me tell you why you didn't say anything, son. Because had you said anything that those white men would have thought was even remotely threatening to that white woman, there would have been a different match in that arena that night. It would have been me, you, and your brother against every white man in there. That's why you didn't say anything. And you know it before, and I never had to tell him that. He understands just from living in America 23 years that you do not. All right. You know, you have to, you know, and so it's just something that's in the milieu. We understand it. You know, it's obviously not right. But the thing that's frustrating about it in the Mormon context is, like I said, I'm explaining this to you. And, you know, half of your listeners, even this is, by the way, the apostate, you know, liberal crowd still doesn't believe me. Thinks I'm exaggerating. That's really not that bad. that they wouldn't do that. And you know, there is a fair amount of indifference throughout all of America, but I think it's just maybe because Mormons are more Republican. It's even more in Mormonism. You know, if you tell one of these stories or try to explain this in elders quorum, there's a lot of blank stares, and a general disbelief. I had this conversation on the Mormon Dialogue board before they kicked me out. And
you were on the board of Dialogue?
I was Mormon Dialogue. No,
oh,
so
okay,
no,
okay.
I mean no, not the board. The blog board, and I remember, you know, someone saying to me, I was like, you know, why can't the prophets speak about this issue? You're supposed to be prophets to the whole world, and you know, all you have to say is, you know, you don't want gay people to get married in California. You don't have anything to say about this issue. And someone said to me the most amazing thing. He said, Sean, I don't think you want them to speak on this issue because I don't think they would say what you want them to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, you're right.
Really quick, a listener noted that subway incident happened in Brazil, not in the United States. But I know I would just have to say that there's a fantastic movie on Netflix called 13th. Have you seen 13th, Sean?
I have not. I lose 2 black points. Take 2 black points off, people. I have not seen 13th yet.
No, it's about the criminalization of being black, basically, in the United States, and it's really powerful, and it basically just backs up the things you're saying, whether or not the subway incident happened
right here in America,
in the United States.
And by the way, Brazil has its same issues with regard to race and color, probably remarkably so. A couple years ago, they tried to have, you know, their Miss Brazil be a darker skinned woman, you know, and that didn't go over well at all. You know, they have their caste system with regard to color as well.
Right.
So I could imagine the same dynamic appears there. But anyway, the bottom line is that, you know, and I'm starting to become more conscious of this myself.
Right.
By the way, from the most selfish reasons is because while I have my own, you know, white card, my children don't. And they're not able to, you know, they don't have the degree, they can't necessarily articulate it as well. And I'm starting to see the danger that, you know, that they're in. And so I started getting more conscious of these issues. And of course, the church is, you know, not the place for this. I remember, you know, the last time I ever gave a lesson in elders quorum. Oh, but also I should explain also that at the same time I'm noticing these things, I'm becoming more radicalized, and that's probably your fault, John. It's your fault. Yeah, let me tell you why it's your fault. Because you had an interview several years ago for ordained women before the first priesthood action. And I got to tell you, I was still am impressed with that organization and those women. The first action is inspiring. I don't know if anyone's ever thought of it this way, but you realize that when they first came to the church, here's what they said. We thought about this and we've prayed on it, and we think that the Lord wants to ordain women. We want you to go back and ask about it. You go ask and get the confirmation that we already got. While you're doing that, we're going to go ahead and sit in this first priesthood session to be ready for when you come around to the result that we know the Lord wants you to have anyway. That's darn near gangster. All right. It basically said, you know, we know exactly where this should go. And so we're going to go ahead and get in front of you. We're going to get ready now. for when you finally come around to the right answer. That's bold. All right.
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't received well, right?
No, it was not received well at all. I understand why people get X'd. That is a bold statement, not justified, but I understand why the church felt threatened by that. But here's the thing: is I was so inspired by that I submit my OW profile. And so they put it up on Facebook, and it says, I believe in the ordination of women because, well, my answer is basically, it's the 21st century. All right, damn it. I don't know how to explain that to you. It's the simplest thing in the world. Maybe half of your talent in the church should be in leadership positions. You might do better. Okay. Right. I get called into my bishop's office.
Uh-oh.
And he says, hey, you made a public statement about the church and about how you thought the church was wrong. And he kind of does the thing like, you don't know any better. You've only been here a few years. But that's not the way we roll. All right. We don't say public things about the church. You can feel that way all you want. All right. Just don't say it out loud. And he said, are we clear? And I said, well, yeah, I'm clear about the fact that I now have to speak about this all the time. And he was like, why? And I'm like, because I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm black. And that's how this works. If you tell me I can't do something, I have to do it if it's right and conscious, because that's sort of the tradition I was born in. So if I either have to be black or Mormon, I'm going to choose black all the time. And so I'm now speaking more vocally about it. So vocally, by the way, that I get invited to be a member of the OW board. And so now I'm getting, among all these, all players, he's very smart. And by the way, here's the thing, I have a Harvard Law degree. I am the least educated person on this board. Think about it, we got Dr. Gina Colvin, all right, and Dr. Jensen. I mean, we've got serious big time thinkers and people who I know a lot more about feminism obviously than I do, and so I'm getting more and further sort of into dangerous ground, right?
From the church's perspective.
From the church's perspective, but before I skipped one thing. So before that happened, the OW does its first action, then it comes out with its second action, and then it says, hey, we're going to do our lessons. The church really then loses their mind, says you're not going to be teaching this in Relief Society. They move to excate. And so I say very arrogantly, because I thought I had a little black privilege, I said, let me go ahead and, and use my race cards here. Let me go ahead and stop this excommunication. This is how silly I am. I write my bishop a letter. And I basically say, okay, you know what? If she's not, because she supports ordained women, she's not eligible to be a member of the church. I'm certainly not eligible to be in the temple. So here's my temple recommend card back. Here you go. Here's my Mormon Express card. You take it back. And part of me thinks very naively, yeah, the church will be like, well, we can't have the one black guy in our state, not be a temple recommended. We'll lose, his 10%. We need to stop this whole excommunication, because that's how powerful I am as a force in this church. I learned something very important about activism. If it's only you, it's paranoid schizophrenia. If Dr. King had been out there in the street, I don't care how eloquently he was, just babbling about whatever he was babbling by himself, there wouldn't have been a Civil Rights Act. There's a schizophrenic person on a corner somewhere in Salt Lake City that is preaching some wonderful truth. Nobody listens unless you're organized. So then I say, okay, I'm going to get on the board. I'm going to try to work for this issue. I become more and more active. And then Reno happens. Or sorry, it wasn't Reno for you. It was the church's policy change. What was that? November of 2015,
yeah.
Right? I remember, but then we're friends. I'm on your list. I get the email from you. I don't believe you. I said, John, this is why they actually just making up stuff about the church. They're not that crazy. Nobody would be that depraved. They're just making up stuff. Sure enough, I'm in Reno at the time, and I'm actually on the poker table when I get this message. I have to go cash in my chips. I go upstairs and I write my resignation letter immediately. Okay.
Wow.
And by the way, I have it here. Because it's still here. And
do you want to read it?
Yeah, I'm gonna read it to you. It's actually pretty. It's actually to show you where my mind was. It was actually quite scathing. I should be ashamed of myself. Hold on a second.
So this is the letter that you wrote in response to the November 2015 policy, where the church basically declared any same-sex married Mormon an immediate apostate. And and implemented the policy that children of same-sex married Mormons were not allowed to get baptized, blessed, or participate in the basic church ordinances and rituals.
Exactly. So I read a letter. I get the right address to the Member Records Division. All right, 50 North Temple. Said this letter is to inform you that we, the undersigned, my wife and I, of the blank ward, blank stake in Mesa, Arizona, hereby resign from the LDS Church effective immediately. We ask our names, that the names of our minor children be removed from the records of the church. We have taken this action as a direct result of recent changes in the LDS Church's handbook of instructions, particularly those pertaining to the children of parents living in same-sex households. We simply refuse to be part of any organization that conditions its membership on the basis of who that person's parents love. We see nothing in this policy that is Christ-like or even decent. Therefore, we cannot possibly associate ourselves with an organization that we believe is motivated by animus toward those who Christ would call the least of these. In effecting this dissociation, we fervently request no further contact other than acknowledgement of receipt of this letter with the LDS Church or its local representatives in any capacity. Specifically, we request to not be assigned home teachers or to be visited by the missionaries any time in the future. Our dissociation from the church is not the result of ignorance or misunderstanding of the doctrine of facts, but it results from a crystal clear knowledge of the bigotry and prejudice that lies at the root of this new policy. That being said, we thank you in advance for removal of our names, blah, blah, blah.
And your wife was on board. Your wife was on board with that.
So I bring back the letter. I say, hey, we signed a letter, send it off. She says, look, I'm on board. I'm ready to be done with these people too. But we got the last Christmas program. And I love the Christmas program with the kids. And Brendan has a part in the Christmas play. And he's, at 11. So I think he's like, has a big part because, he's one of the older kids. So I said, okay, so why don't we do it after the Christmas play? We do it after Christmas play and we're fine. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm never going to church until then, though. I'm done. And a few weeks later, they have what is that called when they meet during the week? But whatever it's called when the kids meet during the week on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever that is.
Like mutual.
Mutual. Thank you. Mutual. So we have a mutual event, and here's what it is. It's a party, a birthday party, for one of the members of our ward. He's a man in his early 30s, disabled physically and mentally, and the kids are going to get together and throw him a birthday party. They do every year, and so I got to go see this party. And so I take Brendan because I want him to sort of learn how to be kind and generous like this too. So I take him to the party, and I'm seeing these kids, and this is like every year. And this guy has his favorite songs, and these kids, it's not. I was thinking the kids would be kind of, just it's an excuse to have cake, but we're not going to be entertaining this guy. And no, it's a birthday party for him and brother so-and-so, and everybody's, bringing presents, and they're, singing songs to him, etc. At one point, I see one of the guys who's going to help, the birthday boy open his gift. This is a doctor, retired doctor in his 70s, and he gets on his knees to, position himself so he can help the kid. I'm thinking, this is a 70-year-old man, a doctor, who got on his knees. That's Christ-like, right? There's some Christ-likeness here. I tell you, what? I'm not sure I give up on these people completely. All right, maybe I gotta stick in a little bit longer. So I took my letter and I kind of, put it on the shelf. I gave a testimony, by the way, so I explained the whole thing to him. I said, but I'm going to stick with you a little bit longer. I'm going to trust that you'll get a little better. And I'm going to have to, and I might lie when people ask me, but I'm not proud of this. All right, I might tell them I'm a recovering Mormon, but I'm going to stick with you a little longer.
Okay.
And then 2016 happened. And I'm a little embarrassed because I probably should have cut my association there. But like I said, I wanted to stick it out a little longer. And then 2016 happened, and it got really bad. Your members, your listeners probably don't know this, but they seem to be pretty smart. They know about the Brazil thing. So somebody looked this up. But we had a guy run for president named Donald Trump. Some of you heard about this guy. And that was a really, I'm 50. I've been through elections before, but he wasn't a different candidate. He wasn't, just an alternative. He seemed to me a very different alternative. And the fact that, so many of my ward members were on board was really bothersome to me. And I remember what got really bothersome is Deseret News had an editorial that basically said anybody but Trump. Now, to my knowledge, Deseret News had never, ever, ever made a recommendation about any presidential candidate. Even Romney, they didn't support. They didn't officially come out and support. And they didn't support Hillary. They simply said, just vote for anybody other than this fool. And
Right.
Mormons still said, you know what? No. You know, even if our church tells us that, then they would say, hey, it wasn't the church. It was the LDS opinion page. The LDS opinion page will never come out for gay marriage until the prophets say it's okay. They will never have an opinion that is against the beliefs of the fundamental beliefs of the church. All right. So for them to come out, they ran that up the flagpole, so to speak. And the members said, yes, we don't care. We like our republicanism, maybe even a little bit of our racism enough that we are going to disregard the counsel of our leaders. We'll let them choose our underwear, but they're not going to choose our president. And we will pick who we want to. And I remember, you know, sort of up until that point, trying to sort of, you know, have these conversations and simply saying, look, you know, this is the kind of thing that got us in trouble up till now. One of the things that would be nice for this church to get over this racism label is if you did not vote for the most racist candidate in recent history in the 2017 election. It's very hard to say we cleaned up our act in 78 when you vote for Trump in 2017.
Right.
And so, you know, let's not as a church go down this road again. Let's be able to say, hey, we didn't vote for this fool. We learned our lesson. And I saw that obviously it wasn't going anywhere. I remember, I think, you know, sort of to me, a very strange last straw was I taught Elders Quorum, and they made a mistake. They let me teach not only Elders Quorum, but the combined, you know, real Mormons, the priesthood session too. So I'm doing the combined all men in the third hour. And the lesson was on Jesus's, you know, let the children come unto me. And so I started out with a question, and I said, guys, someone help me out. Pull out your scriptures. There's a line from, and I found out in the four Gospels where Jesus says, you know, allow the children to come unto me. And I pulled out the four verses. I said, now, someone read from John. And someone read from John. I said, no, that's not right. It just says Jesus come. I'm looking for something more. The Gospels are different. Someone read from Matthew. Jesus said, the children come unto me. I said, no, I need more. Give me Mark. We go through Luke. And I said, you know, somebody help me out here. Where's the part where it says, let the children come unto me unless one of their parents is gay? Which that's got to be in maybe the Book of Mormon. Tell me where that is. I got to find that. And I kind of sort of challenged them on that and said, look, you know what, you know, this isn't, you know, right, doesn't sort of fit, but I'm not here to argue with the church. I'm just simply saying that, you know, it doesn't, you know, we need to find a different basis for this, because one of you might want to run for office outside of Utah. And part of I was speaking to was Jason Chavis. He is my family tangentially, you know, he's one of his family members is in our ward. And so he's there, and we talk about it afterwards. He says, yeah, you know, I heard you, etc. And I explained to him a conversation. I explained to the Elders Quorum how this would be my last talk, and that I was going to be leaving to, you know, to attend a black church to work on behalf of, to be more politically active, to, you know, do some work with Black Lives Matter, and certainly not going to happen here. And I wasn't upset with any of you, but I had explained to them the story I told you about Brendan and how, you know, this is something that has to be done, and I need to step up and do this. I remember talking to Jason Chavis afterwards, and he was very, you know, understanding, and he listened and listened. And the very next day, he went back to Fox and declared his public support for Trump. And this was after the whole grabbing thing, right? He said, I'm back on board.
After Trump had talked about grabbing sexually harassing women.
Exactly. Talked about sexually harassing women. He came back and said, you know, anyway, it didn't have anything to do with my talk, but it made me understand that I could have a conversation with people, and it could seem like I'm getting through, and still, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And so I was like, okay, this is my cue to leave. And I probably need to leave now because I keep calling these people stupid on Facebook, so it's probably not going to work very well anyway. And so, you know, I haven't been back since you know, Trump won the primary, basically.
Did you ever send the letter?
I did not send the letter, and there's no reason not to. I just you know, I'd have to rewrite the letter. You know, didn't they kind of by the way, stepped back on the policy somewhat and, said that they will still kick out, I guess, the gay members, but not necessarily the kids. One of the parents
they've kept it conveniently ambiguous and nebulous so that they could allow local leaders to sort of do whatever they felt was right for the local ward. It's kind of like, allowing it to stay at the local level.
Got it. Exactly. And that's where, and that's the thing that got me though, was that, it seems to me that most of this, I wouldn't have been upset if this had been a policy of the church, but I find that my opinion is that I don't think that members follow the prophet. I think the prophets follow the members. The members decide on their own which of the prophetic advice they'll accept. And when they come to a consensus on that, they solidify, say, okay, everybody's going to do this. And then the prophets draw a bullseye around it. So a great example, that's the word of wisdom. We do some of the word of wisdom, but not other parts. Because the parts that people accepted were the parts that they were willing to do, and they weren't willing to give up all that meat because meat is delicious. All right, no one's willing to give up bacon all year long. All right, and so they're like, forget that. I'm going to do the parts I like. So I learned this either on probably Mormon Expression, maybe your podcast about the what was it about the birth control ban for about 6 months during the 70s.
Sure.
And the members said, no, we're not doing that. We're not having 35 kids, and the church was like, I guess, and I guess not. And so,
also, the church forbade oral sex for a short time in the early 80s, and and then they took that back.
Yeah, because they realized that they can't have standards that the members won't follow, and the members decide we're going to follow this and that. Now, I don't mean that each member gets to decide, right? If you decide you want to drink coffee or tea, you can't do that. But once the membership as a whole decides, then the prophets just sort of draw the bullseye around the target and go, okay, we're all going to do this. And they decided that, a certain amount of racism is fine, because Trump doesn't just have policies that are, would be considered conservative, but he won by being the most outwardly hostile to Mexican immigrants, to Muslims. No one else would say that the Mexican people are rapists and drug dealers. And somehow the party, and then 60% of Mormons said, yeah, that's about right for us. And it's not necessarily that they like that, but that it was acceptable. It's like, you know what? I'd like to have my tax break with a little less racism. But if you have to pile a little racism on my tax break, I'm going to take my tax break, all right? Because the bottom line is, I want to pay 33%. And the idea that it's acceptable to have a little bit of racism and a little bit of homophobia with what you want economically was hugely problematic for me. And like I said, it's on the local level.
And, it is mind-blowing that the church has spent millions and millions of dollars, and every conference talk, it's, homosexuality and, all that stuff, all the Prop 8 stuff and all the backlash for the November 2015 policy. And yet with the racist problems going on, the racism, the death of young black men and the police brutality and all that stuff that's happening, that of course is a complex issue, the church is pretty silent on.
They have to be, because they understand the membership is not with them on this.
Yeah.
And they would, lose half the membership, or the members would just, not listen. And that brings us to, why I contacted you about doing it now with the mommy blogger.
Yeah. Talk about her and what that was like for you to witness. Yeah, so we got this mommy blogger who's celebrated as a white supremacist, invited to the rallies. What'd you think about her?
I've heard about her for the last 6 months or so. I've never read the blog post. I'm not fascinated by ideas of white nationalism in the sense that I need to learn more about it. I think it's a pretty simple thing. I'm white. I'm better than you. I got it. But the thing that was amazing to me, and I know some people say, no, that's not our position. Our position is that we should preserve white culture, which means we're better than you. We want to preserve the good stuff and not be listening to your Beyonce and all your gutter stuff. And so, but the point is that I wasn't mad, at her. Who cares? But the members start saying, hey, so the church comes out with a statement. and says, okay, we want to make sure that we do our Donald Trump on Monday statement. We're not for white supremacy. We don't support it. We all are like unto God. And then she kind of writes back and says, yes, the church has affirmed me. They said that white people have equal rights to have their own culture as well. And so then the church comes out with a second statement and says, no, mommy blogger, we're talking to you.
Yeah. But I mean, some felt like the first statement was a little bit too weak, right?
It was, right? It was a Trump, kind of read it from the platform. We don't support white supremacism, da, 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 da. And then they kind of came back and said, no, we're serious, mommy blogger. We're telling you we don't like this alt-right stuff, okay? And the thing that got me, though, was people started saying, well, the church, and then she said, you know what, the church can't tell me what to do. All right, if you send a general authority, I'm not listening to the LDS press room. If you want to tell me, I can't be a white nationalist, send a general authority. Well, my thought was, why would that be necessary? Because in a world that I thought we would live in, she would have been driven out of the church locally. Her views would have been so abhorrent to her friends and neighbors that she would have been Mormon non grata. All right, that no one would have invited her to mommy lunch on Tuesday. That her kids, no one was going to send their kids to the white supremacy house to go play, games. But somehow she still feels welcome in the church, which means that she walks into that church on Sunday. There are people who still love and hug and kiss her, and she is a part of the fold. Now, it's interesting because some of us have experienced this. If she had come out for, the ordination of women, she wouldn't have that love. You don't necessarily have to have the Salt Lake City to come get you. You lose a calling, right? You lose friends. If you came out, right, and said the church needs to apologize for the priesthood ban, you'd lose some friends. But somehow you can come out for white nationalism, speak at the rally, and be perfectly at home in your ward, because that's just a minor difference of opinion. We'll let that go. That's like whether you like, red Pokemon or blue Pokemon team, whether you support white supremacy or not. But
yeah.
Else, it's a big deal. Are you getting questions or something?
No. I'm gonna break a tiny bit of news here, and Sean, I hope you'll forgive me for kind of a bit of a sidebar conversation. But I had a very concerned church member write me the following, and it's gonna add, I think, a little bit of additional weight to what you're saying, as if it's needed. But he's basically said there's an active LDS church member in good standing in the La Crescenta, California stake, La Canada First Ward. He is a vocal, proud white supremacist. He was recently selected as a delegate by Donald Trump. While this brother has been making overt public racist statements for decades, he has never experienced church discipline, remains in good standing in spite of numerous complaints by fellow stake members. Some of the statements that he's made include the white race is dying out in America and Europe because we are afraid to be called racist. Donald Trump is not racist, but Donald Trump is not afraid. Don't vote for a Cuban, vote for Donald Trump, referring to Ted Cruz, I think.
Really?
Another public statement, no person shall be a citizen of the United States unless he is a non-Hispanic white of the European race. So these are statements made by this active member of the church in full standing. These statements have been brought to the attention of ward and stake leaders, and nothing's been done. He's quoted as saying, the skinheads thought I was too extreme to run in their organization. He said, our goal is to save the white race. Whatever approach works, we'll jump on that. One commercial, he talked about one commercial. There's a Harry Potter commercial for the Harry Potter movie that had Harry Potter kissing a Chinese girl. And he says, and of all of the little snippets that they could take out of the movies, why would the networks focus on Harry Potter kissing a Chinese girl? And if you look at all of the reality shows, there was misogynation in every frame. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're grappling with. And I'm just, his name is William Daniel Johnson. And I had a very concerned listener ask me, because he didn't feel empowered to do so. He's spoken to his church leaders, ward and stake level, no response. And I just wanted to say that this example of the white white supremacist mommy blogger is not an exception. That's all I wanted to say.
No, I'm glad to know. That's perfectly, that's great context for this. But remember, once again, it's not just, certainly so it's not happening at the nationwide level, but it's not happening at the stake level. But I would imagine that wouldn't happen. That doesn't need to happen. I mean, that should be on a membership. How does this guy have people? I bet you has a calling. How does someone allow their young men, right, to let him be the young men's leader? All right, take the kids on a scouting trip. Teach them all the white supremacist ways. It seems to me that so many of the members of the church are like, well, with issues of race, that's all a matter of opinion. And whether you think we are all God's children or some of us are, less human than others, well, that's like whether you like I said, which Pokemon team you choose. Right. That's not really a big deal. That's not a deal breaker for me, right? Racism is not a deal breaker in the church.
And it has to be a part because the Book of Mormon is fundamentally racist, right? Our apostles and prophets have been historically racist. And so it's got to be hard to take a firm stand because you're basically condemning your own scripture and you're condemning your own prophets, seers, and revelators.
Well, but here's the thing that's amazing about that, though, is that, that is something that other churches do all the time. So, for instance, the Catholic Church. Now, the Catholic Church is horrible has had other problems, horrible problems. But, for instance, they will apologize to the Muslims for trying to wipe them all out during the Crusades, all right? Now, it might take 700 years for the apology to come through, but at some point they will say, hey, you know what? We were wrong at one point at time. We probably shouldn't have burned all those people at the stake. Not everybody was a witch. The idea that they can do that. And I've often asked the Catholic person once, I said, how are you guys able to live with this so much better than, us Mormons, where you can acknowledge that, what, that Pope was horrible. They have some popes that were corrupted, they're named, bad corrupt Pope the Eighth, right? Where they understand that. And part of it is they said, well, we understand we don't have an option because we ruined most of Europe for 1,000 years. It's not like we can hide it. All right. Everybody knows that we killed all the Muslims. So we eventually have to either own it or support it, but we can't sort of just sweep it under the rugs. And Mormons seem to, for a long time, could hide it because unless you went to the tanner's bookstore and put on the overcoat and in the shades and snuck in there, nobody could find out. But now that we have the internet, you kind of really have to address those issues. And I don't know what would be unchristlike about a religion that redemption is at the key of it, right? Ask for forgiveness, and you should be to say, hey, we were wrong. We made mistakes in the past, and, we're going to try to do better going forward, although we're probably screwing up 3 things now. Right. We all live with that in life, and I and why, and I understand. I guess it is against it. Theology would be tough. You'd lose some people who would think, "Oh my God, if you weren't perfect all the time, I guess maybe I could wear my own underwear and drink caffeine that's more than 140 degrees of Fahrenheit." And I get how people might lose their minds and start doing things that But the idea, though, that you'll just throw these people under the bus. So African Americans, you just simply say, okay, you know what? You're going to have all white apostles until the membership can get past that, and we think that that's going to be sometime around never. I think the priesthood ban, was one of those things where, and they kind of mentioned this in the essay, where they know the membership, and I think the membership wouldn't have gone for it. Mm-hmm. Had the church in '63 said, hey, you know what, we're really kind of thinking this, we need to do this civil rights thing, they would have lost a lot of members. They had to wait until they had gotten, enough buy-in from the membership. But I think part of that, though, is that you push on it, right? You condition the members where, constantly, and you do that by things like, having African Americans in authority, and by making efforts, and particularly with regard to, the church says, no, we have plenty of diversity. I'm like, no, you have Africans, not African Americans, and there is a difference.
Yeah. So what if a member says to you, oh, we love black people. We've got a ton of missionaries in Africa. We're baptizing black people like crazy. And we show them every time we can in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. We've got Alex Boyer whenever we can. We let him MC events. We're not racist. We're showing black people disproportionately. We love them so much.
Exactly. And we're mascots. within the church. And by the way, here's the thing about this: black people have been mascots for a long time. All right, we've always allowed black people to come and sing, dance, entertain you. All right, be the first vignette in your Mormon Meet the Mormon movie. But positions of authority and leadership are different. And also, here's the challenge, though. The challenge is that if you end up getting someone in this church, you end up getting someone who ends up, thinking as you might not even have a black member if they end up being like, I'm not going to name the particular current black elder because I'll mispronounce his name. But he doesn't have any authority to me. Sataki, I think is his name, where, he would be like, hey, what's wrong with the mommy blogger? You end up getting, the Clarence Thomas or, Ben Carson of Mormonism, right? Because that's the only person who could really stand Mormonism long enough to rise to the ranks. And so it's very difficult. But part of it is, like I said, is having an atmosphere where, it's possible to make these suggestions and for the church to really take a concerted effort and to say, for the same, because it wasn't an accident. The people they chose. You realize the people they chose to Meet the Mormon movie are absolutely amazing, right? You have the African American comes first, by the way, what a concept, right? Then you have the people from South America, the woman kickboxer, because
right.
Certainly my ward is filled with nothing but dentists and woman kickboxers. That's all we have is orthodontists and woman kickboxers in my ward, right? How many women kickboxers have you met in the LDS Church? Zero, right? I mean, they went and found all these people, but they understood that we have to present this image and that the members don't care or are not concerned. But, maybe.
So why the missionary work? That's not for PR.
Well, that's numbers. And that, you could possibly sell an African on this message. It's very difficult. I mean, we've talked about this in another 100 contexts. A lot of times you do missionary work, you get the best results in places where people aren't doing as well as we are financially, which is why if you try it in Europe, you don't get any Europeans, white, black, orange, or green, to join the church. Very difficult. But if you go to someone and you say, hey, my God gave me water, and you don't, you got a pretty good God argument, all right? My God gave me a bike, all right? You don't have a bike, I win. If you sell that to someone who has their own car, though, then it's kind of harder. So a lot of times, they're fishing where where the fish bite. And so they would have purple people if they would join the church.
So what if somebody were to say to you, come on, Sean, yes, we have racist teachings. Yes, we have a hard time apologizing for our past racism because we don't want to undermine our own authority as church leaders. But listen, the brethren, the Q15, they love all people. They're when they send missionaries to Africa, it's not because they just want numbers, they want souls, and they're bringing souls unto Christ, and they're happy to invest in Africa because they love all people. They would love inner city Harlem or inner city wherever to have a lot of people of color converts. These people aren't racist. The 21st century Mormon church is not racist. Maybe they believe in freedom of speech, and so they don't go after a white supremacist member who is vocal about white culture. But come on, Sean, the LDS Church in 2017 condemns racism. They accept all people, and they're not racist.
In the movie Forrest Gump, one of my favorite lines, I never really understood it at first, was when the mother said to Forrest, "Stupid is as stupid does." And what she was trying to say to him, son, is I don't care what label people give you. I'm going to judge what you do by your actions, and what will determine whether you're stupid is if you do stupid things. Racism is as racist does. I don't care what the church says about what they do, but if you do things that make it harder for African Americans to be members of your church, for instance, perfect example is the African. They would love to have African Americans be members in the inner city, provided they don't have to do anything that will make it more comfortable for those members to join. If you're a black person, you've got to now go back to every black person you know and say, oh yeah, by the way, this church, which was 13 years late on civil rights, which still to this day has not had a black apostle, still thinks of me as an equal person, and nobody is going to believe you. You're going to have to fight your friends and neighbors, all right? The church is not making any active outreach in that regard. Yes, they will. And I should say, the church did do one thing. They did the genealogy thing recently. So they tried to make an outreach, say, hey, we said you were liars and cowards and cursed for 100 years. But you know what? Look, we looked up your records. So we're good now, right? Not really. You need to do a little more than that. It's not that the fact that the church, by the way, is racist. And let's just find the terms, all right? Because actually it is. But people think of racism as an animus. I'm going to tell you right now, I know that President Monson isn't thinking right now, ooh, I hate some black people. First of all, I'm not sure what President Monson, but none of the 15 is right now rubbing their hands, petting a bald cat, right, laughing maniacally and going, ha, 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 I hate black people. I imagine right now that not one of them is thinking about a black person either. Part of why I call it white supremacy is not the idea that I hate black people, but simply that white people are superior. They should be trusted. So we trust them with 100 apostle positions in a row, because who else would you trust with the Lord's church? That to me is white supremacy. White supremacy is, and I like to think of it in an analogy. Most people in the world are human supremacists. Here's what I mean by this. We think that human beings are the most valuable, worthy creatures on the planet. Now, here's the thing about it is, it doesn't mean that we hate the other creatures. I have 2 dogs. I love my puppies. But my puppies are not equal to me. I don't think that they are equal beings to me. If I have to choose between 2 of my puppies and one of my children, I can have 100 puppies and I still choose one of my children. My children have more value than me. My dogs don't even get to determine what they eat. I pick that out. I haven't asked them once, right, what they want to eat, where they want to live, whether they want to live with me at all, because I am the superior being. I don't hate them though. I love them, right? I kiss them and hug them. But there's a difference between loving someone and thinking they're your equal. In this church, for instance, we have the same problem with sexism. Mormons love their wives, no doubt about it. But they don't think of them as being equal beings, as being people who are equally capable of respect and responsibility. They're simply people we love. And as a matter of fact, we take care of them and make sure we chaperone them and watch over them, because that's what you do for lesser beings. So it's not a matter of hatred. The brethren do not hate, but I'm sure that there is some thought, unless it's just an accident that they got 100 white guys in a row, that, remember, it's not just black people. Black men have been a member of the church. We've had Polynesians in the church since 1840 something.
Right.
You tell me one of them couldn't have made it?
Right.
And for them, it's like I said, and I don't think it's conscious. I think it's unconscious. But remember, you said this. It's like, well, we believe in freedom of speech. No, we don't. Go to your stand up in a testimony meeting and say, I think Joseph made all this up. See how much freedom of speech they believe in. We don't believe in freedom of speech. Right? We believe in freedom to repeat back the doctrine as it's been taught to us.
Okay.
And right now, the doctrine seems to say, well, with regard to race, the church says, my name is Bennett, I ain't in it. Whatever you want to believe with regard to race, I'm not going to tell you what to believe. Now, I'll tell you what underwear to wear. I'll tell you how to have your caffeine. I'll tell you, how much of your money to give me. I will tell you what age your kids can start dating. All right, what music they should listen to.
How many earrings to have?
Thank you. Right, but I'm not going to talk to you about whether you should treat all human beings as being fundamentally equal to you. That's getting your business.
Well, wait. The church has made statements saying we condemn racism, and racism isn't part of Mormonism. So why haven't those made you feel much better?
Because if you violate those deeply held beliefs, what happens to you? Remember, if you go in and say, hey, I violated the coffee, the caffeine over 140 degrees, you lose temple recommend.
Yeah, you can't see your own child, get married in the temple,
get married, right?
Yeah.
But if you violate that all onto a like unto God, well, we're not going to get all of your business about that. And so, there's another expression that says, that basically we know what is important to you by what you measure. And the church measures 14 things in the temple recommend interview that they think are very important. And not one of them is your views on whether other people are actually fully human. Now, we don't want you to, we want to get our money and make sure, we want to make sure we have something in there about alimony. Pay your alimony. which I think is important. All right, but if you don't pay alimony, there are consequences. You want to start a white supremacist group, lead a march through Charlottesville with torches, that's on you.
Right.
And, you see that, and I don't think, like I said, I think the brethren, if they thought they could get away with it, if they thought that the members would listen to them, they would speak on it. I think that they know that, most of the members would either ignore them or be hostile. And, we've seen that before. I was amazed at the commentary or the comments on the Deseret News site from people who had their names on there, right? When the church said, don't vote for Trump, you should have seen the people who were like, how dare you get in my business? How dare you tell me how to live? And I'm like, wait a minute, they tell you how to live every day about everything. Your Monday's taken up, your Wednesday, your Thursday, every day. And somehow the idea to tell you who to vote for was, like, don't get in the way of my racism and my tax cut. I will listen to a lot of your stuff, but, there's going to be a limit. And like I said, I don't think the Mormons are, we use it. People get so offended by the term of racism or white supremacy. Let me explain. I am African American. I'm 49 years old. I've been black 43 of those years at least. All right, at least 43. I don't count the years I lived in Cambridge. All right, but I have that in me. I took the Harvard implicit association test.
Right.
And I scored. Remember, I've been black most of my life.
Yeah.
It turns out I hate black people too.
Yeah.
I had trouble associating blacks with goodness, moderately. Now, I didn't hate black people a lot, but just a little bit. I'm going to tell you my Barack Obama story because I haven't talked about Obama. So in the second half, people need to know I went to school with Obama. I'm 1 year behind Obama. I get to the law school and there's a black law student event. And so they have a chaperone to make sure, we don't do anything crazy. And she starts introducing me. Say, hey, that's Professor Dershowitz, that's Professor Tribe. And she says, have you met Barack Obama? I said, who the heck is Shakalama? She said, no, Barack Obama. I said, was he in the Commodores? She says, no. Barack Obama has just made law review. He's brilliant. He's going to be somebody someday. You need to go meet him. Now, here's the problem is, one, I just got in Harvard Law School. I'm 21 years old. I thought I was going to be somebody someday. You didn't think I saw a Mormon Stories podcast in my future, all right? This is not plan A. And also I'm like, you know what? I remember saying to her, true story, 30 years ago. I said to her, you know what? You go tell the Dalai Lama, whatever his name is, that Sean Carter just got to the law school. The young man would like some time and attention. I'm more than happy to take him under my wing. Otherwise, why don't you go find me a girl? Introduce me to Michelle. That conversation happened, I said, 20-something years ago. Here's two things.
Wow.
One, only one of the two of us is still telling that story. All right. Obama's speaking somewhere today, making a lot more than I am to give that talk. And he's not talking about the day he missed meeting Sean Carter. But think about it. I'm black. I don't hate black people. All right. I told you, my family members, all of them are black. My college roommate was black. My best friend from high school, stuff you guys use. I like black people a lot. But even I fell victim to it. The reason that I blew this guy off is he didn't look like the 44th president of the United States to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he didn't look like the 444th president of the United States. Mm. He didn't have the right name to be president. How you going to be president? Your name is Barack Hussein Obama.
Right.
Right. The first black president was supposed to be named a good black president name. Thurgood Booker T. Du Bois Jackson VI. Right? That's a black president name. Right. Now, I missed it because I fell for the idea that he didn't look like the first black president. Now, if I can do it, I imagine that white people can do it a lot. And so the idea that, I think, the more assaulting thing you could say to a lot of white people is, that you have a white supremacist mindset. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't, you haven't been paying attention. You're not very bright. Because every lesson we've learned for the last 50 years has been telling us that white people are more responsible, or are smarter, are more able, unless it's on a basketball court. And everywhere else in life they are, and and so the fact that if you've accepted that, doesn't make you evil or wrong. It makes you actually an intelligent human being. Well, we got to work on it. But the pushing back. And so if you're telling me 15 white men who lived in Utah and spent most of their time around other white people, particularly in authority, that they have ideas of white supremacy, I'm going to guess the answer is yes. Right. I'm going to think it's impossible for it to be no. If they're at all intelligent, how could they sit in all these meetings with all white guys deciding the fate of God's kingdom?
Yeah.
and not have drawn the assumption that there must be something special about being white.
Yeah, of course. Of course. One of the most heartbreaking things I ever learned as a PhD student, I saw this documentary where they give these little black girls white and black dolls and brown dolls, and the black girls by a large majority choose the white dolls. And when asked why, they said because the black doll is bad, the black doll is dirty. And it just shows that we all absorb these messages culturally, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, I think part of it, but here's, I think the challenge we have with Mormons is because most members don't say bad words. They wouldn't call some, Idaho, I'm you people out of it, but those people in the most of the civilized world, I've never heard in my travels of Mormonism the N-word. I can't imagine that word being used in people's houses, particularly among educated, sophisticated people. You just don't do that. But I think a lot of times that they conflate, okay, because I don't say bad things, it means that I'm not racist. I just accept very, very willingly the advantages of being white, and I'm not concerned about the plight of people who aren't, but that doesn't make me racist.
Right.
It probably kind of does. It doesn't make you bad evil, but it does, mean that, that you've accepted.
So this is going to be obvious, but I want you just to address it anyway. To the Mormon that says, hey, it's not that Black Lives Matter, it's that all lives matter. What's your response to that response?
The best response I saw this week was someone that did hashtag all cities matter. And what they said is, why are you guys spending all this time just worried about Houston? All right, there are all kind of cities out there now. All cities matter. Forget to stop doing your Facebook and changing your profile to say we stand with Houston. You stand with all cities. Well, not all cities aren't underwater right now. Right, Mesa's fine, very, very too dry. All right, and so the idea with Black Lives Matter is simply that yes, all lives matter, but all lives aren't under attack right now. Certain lives are more under attack than others. Now, in truth, I think the police state is to a state where I think white people should be concerned too. But you're not for now, so we have to worry about Black Lives Mattering. But the truth of the matter is that when people think of it from a standpoint of of being offended by Black Lives Matter, I also am amazed by this. I think people are looking to be offended. Here's why. I call myself black, but you understand that's not a literal term. I'm not actually black. I'm actually kind of a very sexy mocha brown, right? A little too sexy, really. But the point is that my mother, on the other hand, is very light skinned. She's still black too. It's not a literal description, right? We're talking about a larger class of people, etc. And so when you have a expression like Black Lives Matter, understand that we're not saying that, like I said, only Wesley Snipes matters and Steph Curry doesn't. We're basically trying to bring up. It's a hashtag to bring up a problem, right? Of police brutality and devaluation of Black lives, all people of color, really. And so the idea that people are butthurt about that, when someone gives me that impression, as a matter of fact, like I saw it on your thing, I would have just blocked the person to move on, because I know that most often it's not a concern over the nomenclature. All right, it's more a concern of feeling left out. I saw one of the comment, by the way, it says, Black Lives Matter is and I think it's a brother, is a horrible group. It's some terrorist group. I'm amazed at the conflation between, say, Black Lives Matter and the Klan. For 90 years, from the end of slavery until very recently, let's say 1955, the Klan was responsible for the lynching of a black man, woman, or child every 3 days for 90 years. Thousands and thousands of African American lives. You know that white people would get dressed in their Sunday best to go to the lynching, right? We have and send pictures and postcards from friends. That Billie Holiday had a song where she talked about the strange fruit that southern trees bear. All right, it means the hanging black bodies. How many of those lynchings have happened from Black Lives Matter? How many white people have been found hanging from trees? Oh, in just the last 2 years, imagine, in round numbers, approximately.
Yeah.
There's no conflation between those two entities at all. One has been a terrorist group that's responsible for thousands of deaths. The other has led some marches, and a couple times there was some litter.
Right. What can a white Mormon or post-Mormon do with the violence against Black youth and adults, with the systemic poverty, the systemic inequities of education, of safety, of healthcare, etc. Sometimes you can just feel guilty and ashamed at your white heritage, but that doesn't help anybody, right?
Well, and a friend of mine said this great. He said, there's a white guy, and he's my sort of white whisperer. Whenever I'm confused about what the heck is wrong with you white people, I will send him a text and literally say, or a message that says, what's wrong with you white people? And I'll ask him, and then he'll give me an explanation of what he thinks is going on. And he explained to me that basically he understood why most, even progressive, liberal white folks don't want to deal so much with the issue of race. He said, it's like your attic. You say, I'm going to clean out the attic on Saturday, and you get up early, and you go in, and you open the door, and you see all of that mess, and you realize the hassle it's going to be to move all of that stuff out of the way, to get the cleaning, and then, by the way, to call the dumpster people to come and pick up that stuff up. You need to go to the Salvation Army and drop these things off and take it to, Deseret Industry, and you say, you know what, next Saturday. And you close it, and as long as it's not, you wouldn't leave that mess in your living room, but that's in the attic. No one sees the attic. And so if you can just sort of push these things away, so if you don't live in a community that has African-American children that are in danger of being shot, then you're not really thinking about it so much. I get that. Here's, I think, the thing you can do, I guess, in two respects, is to, use your privilege to stand up for others. One of the things I try to do is whenever I see a traffic stop, if I'm on foot, for instance, I will go and record the stop. And it's harder as an African American, but I will definitely, use my lawyer card in a minute and try to say, hey, let's just make sure that you understand I'm watching here. I am going to speak up about these things. The other thing is, more importantly, maybe, is to check each other on this matter. There's a video that went viral last week, hilarious video in my mind, because I'm wrong, pray for me, but it involves two white women, and they're in a whole apartment complex somewhere, and we're in the middle of it. But one white woman apparently had said something racist to someone else, about blacks, and the other white woman had confronted her about it. And so the first racist woman starts to pick a fight with the non-racist woman, and really wasn't that bright, because the non-racist woman knew how to fight, and so they had a big fight, and the forces of good won. And I'm not suggesting that white women go out and beat up other white women, at least not all the time. But what I am suggesting is that, when you hear things, that you subtly and very nicely, put your sisters in check. And brothers, you hear something you're not appropriate, and you say, hey, you know what, maybe let's think of it this way. And to not just sort of shy away from it. To not just let it go, say, well, I don't want to cause any contention here. And of course, as Mormons, we don't want to cause any contention. But you have to call contention. It doesn't mean, by the way, you yell, hey, you racist, hashtag racist. But to explain, what you see wrong with it. Let's talk about this. There's another way to look at it. And that conversation works. That's only the work you can do, because it's not going to come well from me. All right? I can't go talk to, the upset, ranting woman. But once a week, you'll see an email from some white woman in Target or Trader Joe's who's yelling at some immigrant. I can't intercede in that situation. It's not going to go well if I do so. Someone, a white person who wants to help does that. And I would be willing to bet that happens more often than you imagine, like at Thanksgiving. Right. The Black Lives Matter. When one of your family members starts explaining how Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group, you might want to correct them and explain the difference between them and the Klan. Right. Or why it's called Black Lives Matter, whatever it is.
Let me ask you this. There have been times where, let's just say the people of color or their allies within the Mormon conversation, have been really critical or frustrated or, angry at things that are said or things that have been done. And I've always noticed that you're a little bit on a different frequency than maybe a good chunk of some of those commentators, you kind of have a slightly different perspective on discourse and on how we talk about these issues. Do you have any way to summarize how maybe you view, this discussions around race within Mormonism, maybe a little bit different?
Well, absolutely. And here's what I think. I think sometimes as people of color, we can be a little less graceful than we should with white allies. Now, part of that is just a reaction to being hurt. And I find myself being this way sometimes too, is that sometimes I'm not as graceful as I should be, because it's hard for me to have to argue about, say, the safety of my child. If I have to try to convince you
Right.
that a young black boy at 12 shouldn't have a gun pulled on him by the police, I'm going to get angry about that, because we're talking about a life or death issue to me. But sometimes it's not life or death, and I see sometimes where there's a tendency for people to really be a little less graceful than they should. I try to look at it this way, which is that I expect white people to mess up in trying to interact in a multicultural community, just like I often messed up when I was trying to enter into white society. So to give you a great example, when I was a young lawyer, I remember going to Boston, and I remember I've been raised with white people, and been with white people a long time, went to law school, right? I was in a law firm, and a partner calls me in, and he says to me, "Hey, have you gotten XYZ done?" And I said, no, I hadn't done. I'm working on a lot of things. And he says, "Okay, I need it sooner rather than later." Now, sooner rather than later, that means everybody, other than cancer, what don't you want sooner rather than later? That doesn't mean anything to me. I go back to my office, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Another young man comes in and says to me, "Hey, did you get the thing done for Mr. So-and-so?" And I said, "No, he said he wanted sooner rather than later." And he kind of said to me, "No, Sean, sooner rather than later is his polite way of saying right goddamn now."
Okay.
All right. He's a Boston, very sophisticated guy. He's not going to order you like that. But when he says sooner rather than later, but he wants it right now. I misunderstood. I didn't understand the coding, the language. What that guy did not do was to put a big Facebook post on and say, "Look at the kind of idiot Sean is in this firm. Hashtag idiot, hashtag dummy, hashtag," they didn't call me out. Right? They simply nicely pointed out to me in private I was misunderstanding. And by the way, now here's what helped though. I also didn't get defensive and go, "He just said right goddamn now. If he said the right thing, I would do it. But if he didn't say the right thing," I listened and I acted accordingly. So it's part, there's blame on both ends, which is that one, we need to do less calling out, call in. If your friend posts something and it's a friend of yours, rather than sharing it and shaming the person, you may want to send them an email, a message saying, "This is inappropriate for this reason, et cetera, et cetera." 9 times out of 10, the person will be decent, hopefully, and listen and say, "Okay, you're right, my bad," and take it down and be done with it. And so, but like I said, I think what really hurts is that, so you'll get an initial reaction that's probably a little harsh, and then you'll get the other person, the ally, doubling down on stupid.
Right.
Right. Because sometimes they'll say, "I didn't mean to offend you." Now, here's the thing is, I agree, but your intentions do not obviate the original offense. If I accidentally step on your foot in the mall, and then I say, "Hey, you hurt me," the actual reaction shouldn't be, "Hey, I didn't mean to. I was actually trying to help you. You should be appreciative that I stepped on your foot." Right?
So say you're sorry.
You say you're sorry. "I'm sorry. I own it. My bad. I didn't look where I was going. It won't happen again." Right? And I think both of us, one of us be, that's people of color and agreed people, be a little more graceful and do less calling out. And then, others. And I found, I remember there was a podcast guy, I'm not going to name who he is, but who had posted something once. And then he went away for the day and the conversation got a little crazy on his thread. And I sent him a little private message that said, "Hey, the conversation got a little crazy on your thread." And then that guy just took the thread down. That was it. It didn't require calling out. It didn't require,
Right.
And the other thing I want to explain, and I got an opportunity because it's mostly allies and white folks. I want to say on behalf of all black people, I've been deputized to speak on behalf of all of us. You get 50. Remember, you understand, 50 is elder as black. I'm 7 years past the actuarial table for a black man. We don't live that long. Right? I'm old as a black man, so I have this privilege. And the privilege is this, is I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us and tell you right now, there is no prize for most woke whitey. I promise you, at the end of this, there will be no prizes for the white person who was the best ally and who beat the other allies. Because what I often see a lot is ally on ally violence, where one ally challenges another ally for not being woke enough and being this, that, and the other. And I'm going to tell you, none of you are getting a prize for this. All right. Don't compete amongst yourselves to be most woke. It doesn't matter. We're all in this together. And so if you see something that another ally is doing, for really heaven's sake, understand you didn't understand this, that was inappropriate 2 years ago either. So contact them privately, work it out. Why would you shame someone who did something that you would have done 2 years ago had you not known better? You know better, you do better. So be a little more kind with each other. I promise you, no prizes, Whitey, none.
Got it. All right, Sean. So this has been an amazing, fun, humorous, hysterical, enlightening, and occasionally deeply disturbing but touching interview. So what's up for you now? Are you following Mormonism? Are you interested in it still? Are you kind of done with it? What's the future for you as it relates to the church or your life? And then what would you want to leave with people as sort of some final closing thoughts?
Fair enough. My journey with Mormonism is largely over. And I kind of thought that this was a stop on the way, that I never really thought of myself as, I remember, for instance, as soon as I joined the church, thinking, okay, next I'm probably going Amish. And so I'm still waiting for them to return a text. But I, never really thought. And so and the things like Mormon Stories and Matt and all the podcasts, I have to confess that I'm not as active in listening as I used to be. I'll listen to this one 100 times, but I don't tend to be as, I'm certainly not as outraged. There was a time in which every week I'm waiting for the latest church outrage, right? And I want to hear about it, the General Conference, roundup. I think this was the first year I didn't watch General Conference, or, even, I can't tell you what happened at General Conference. First time, the last General Conference. So I'm kind of moving past that. I'm not mad, by the way, at the members, at the leadership. That's the other thing about the leadership, by the way. We do understand that these are old men, right? The expectation, I think, that we have is amazing. My grandfather lived to be almost 80, which, remember, for black is really, really old. At the end of his life, we didn't really take everything he said so seriously. We began to understand that Papa was not exactly the voice of reason he had been in an earlier age. And certainly, for instance, when my grandfather got very near the end, he began to think he was a professional boxer. And if you walked up to him, he would sort of shuffle to you and say, here I am, Shelby boy, 150 pounds of floating joy. I guess he used to box in the military. He hadn't been 150 pounds for a long time. We did not take that seriously. We did not challenge him to a fight. We did not book other fights for him. We just simply said, oh, that's Pawpaw, and we moved on. So part of what will not allow me to be frustrated by the church and their edicts is simply that I'm a grown-ass man, and these are old men who might say crazy things from time to time. I expect that I move on. As far as, what's next for me is I, still will tell jokes to lawyers. But more of what I'm doing is trying to be a voice in this space with regard to diversity and inclusion. I'm starting a new blog next week, teaching people how to be exceptional racists. And my goal is to teach people, all of us, myself included, to be the exceptional racist. And what do you mean by that? Exactly. What I mean by exceptional racist is not the superb racist, but the racist who makes exceptions. So many exceptions, in fact, that they blow out the rule. In school, we all learned I before E except after C, right? So we have a spelling rule, and that's to help us how to spell words. I looked it up recently. There are 46 words in the English language that conform to that rule of I before E except after C. There are 923 words that are exceptions to that. Words like way and science and deity and conceit, I'm sorry, not conceit, and about 100 words, or 923 words that don't conform to that rule.
Wow.
If you spell according to that rule, you are going to look very stupid. None of us spell according to that rule. We memorize the words. Every word is a different word, and therefore we apply a specific case to it. Same thing with our prejudices and with regard to both race, gender, orientation. Find exceptions to your rules. All right. There are 923 exceptions for every one of these rules that you have that you built. But the challenge is to admit the rule, right? To be able to admit to yourself that you have those biases. And I don't saying necessarily admit them publicly, all right, but admit them to yourself. Perfect example is I had to work for a few years ago. I realized how sexist I was, and it's not something I'm proud of. I'm certainly not running around, putting it on my Facebook page. But I've had to literally train myself. And here's one by exceptions to the rule. One of the untruths I learned, one of the prejudices I had, was that women tell stories particularly badly. And that rule, by the way, found a lot of confirmation at sacrament meeting. All right, because once a week, you have some husband and wife pair get up, and the wife tells some disjointed, horrible story because, by the way, she's not a professional speaker, and so that's what happens. And I remember having that perception, and then I decided to find some exceptions to it. So I went on YouTube and found TED Talks and found, you know what? There are a lot of women out there who can really, really speak well. They're not giving free speeches at LDS sacrament meetings, right. But there are some incredible speakers out there. Also, I started counting the men and found out, guess what? Most Mormon men tell stories just as badly. It's, you've done a whole thing on confirmation bias. If you don't challenge your biases, then you always find confirming information. But the hard part is coming to grips and saying what your bias is and being able to admit it to yourself. I think of women in this way. I think of, Latinos in this way. And then to work on, finding examples. Because once you find examples, it solves that in a minute. Right? And one of the greatest things to me was being on the Ordained Women Board, being in a room with 8 women smarter than you. That will do a lot for your ideas of male supremacy. Right. Right? But it doesn't happen unless you kind of seek it out. And so I'm gonna get this started. But if you follow me, follow or friend me on Facebook. It's where I post all this stuff, just like Don at Sean Carter. I think "sexy black man" will probably get you there too. Just Google that, and that'll get you to me. And then, but I'm gonna speak a lot more about that issue, and that's gonna be sort of my new thing going forward.
All right. And if you wanted to leave us with what you believe in 2017, what's your testimony of life of some closing thoughts to inspire, motivate, or make us laugh?
Oh, that's what. Let me leave something that I think is maybe inspirational. I had this weird experience with Mormonism. Never was a true believer in the truth claims, but I was a true believer in the community. And I want to encourage some of you to say, don't give up on the community yet. Your community is horribly flawed. But I don't know if you've been to America recently. The rest of us are flawed too. And I imagine that they're flawed in Australia and Japan and everywhere else too. And I think sometimes we're so quick to run away from our community because we see something that we don't like. But you're going to find out that, the problem with the next group you join is they took you. And so the black church I'm in now is not a perfect church because they let me show up. Now, that's the place I need to be because we're more socially active and it's my people. I'm returning home. But I'm going to encourage you, to the extent you can, to return home. And that doesn't mean that you go to sacrament meeting every week, but that you can go to, the baptism reception and just be with the people. And you don't have to agree with everything that they agree with, but to really, to be able to have more grace for them. Plus, it allows you to have these opportunities to correct them, and if you need to punch a white woman. I'm recommending it, but if you have to, like in that video I was telling you about, you might have to punch one if you're a woman.
I cannot condone that.
No. Well, all right. What about open hand slap?
Nope.
All right. Fair enough. And I'm not coming on you. I'm a lawyer. I'm also the court. I'm telling you, don't assault anyone.
Okay.
If you do, make sure you send me the video so I can share it.
All right, Sean Carter. Sean Carter, it's been so great to have you on Mormon Stories. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and this is a great time to do it. It's been wonderful.
No, and thank you so much. This has been, I've spent hours and hours listening. I now have my own Mormon story. I really feel like I've come full circle. I could die today, really.
You started your Mormon experience listening to Mormon Stories, and now you're moving on from Mormonism.
It's perfect.
Being interviewed for Mormon Stories.
Hey, thanks so much, John. I appreciate it.
All right, Sean, you're awesome. Please reach out anytime.
Talk to you.
Thanks for helping us do better.